The biggest day yet in the Casey Anthony murder trial. Disturbing testimony.
The smell in the car was like something I had never, it was pretty strong.
Desperate calls.
My granddaughter has been taken.
And Cindy Anthony doubled over with agony. The twists and turns in this baffling family dynamic just don't stop. Was mother-daughter jealousy responsible for Kaylee's death? And what about Casey's brother Lee? What was the true nature of his relationship with his sister?
Was the secret that Casey had shared with you that she had been abused by her father?
No.
What was the secret that she had shared with you?
Lee Anthony tried to sexually abuse her.
Tonight, despite being accused of sexual abuse, Casey's brother, Lee Anthony, stands by his sister, asking a judge for special permission to sit in the courtroom, even though he isn't Kaylee's next of kin. The judge approves this, and Lee has been a constant supporter of Casey. Here he is speaking at Kaylee's memorial service.
Today is the day for this family to unite and display their solidarity and strength. This family is united. But this family is incomplete. I am incomplete. I'm broken.
Incomplete, broken. You listen to those words and you have to wonder if he had any idea just how bad things were going to get. I'm back with host of Issues on HLN, Jane Velez-Mitchell. Also joining us is Gene Casares from In Session on True TV, and Mark Haushalter. He is a criminal defense attorney with me here in the studio. Let's talk about Casey's accusations that her brother molested her. Gene, it all started in a jailhouse letter. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. She wrote to an inmate that Lee, her brother, would come into her bedroom with a flashlight, that he would feel her, and in the morning she'd wake up and her bra would be up at her neck and it would be unhooked. She thought her father may have done the same thing, but in the opening statement with Jose Baez, it was completely reversed. It was that her father had sexually molested her, overtly done so, and that Lee had tried to follow in those footsteps but had not.
Oh, interesting. Now, Jane, you'll have none of this, right? You don't believe any of the sexual abuse allegations?
No, I'm looking.
Well, the woman's a pathological liar. And why should we believe her about this one particular thing when she's clearly lied about everything else in her life? And have these people done anything that would indicate that they have devious tendencies up until this point? No. So there's no corroboration whatsoever, Dr. Drew.
So, Jane, your issue is what's the evidence? Mark, how are they going to fight that? What is the evidence? And I think you would probably respond, so there's two questions for you. In response to what Jane had said would be, well, that's how young women that have been sexually abused behave. They lie and they are inconsistent. So would that be your defense? And then what would your evidence be to the abuse itself?
Absolutely. When I hear your panel start talking, they bit into the media hype right now. I mean, I hear it, and all they're doing is feeding the frenzy, throwing more wood on the fire. But what it really comes down to, what the prosecution wants to avoid, is this whole molestation thing. That's going to be a defense tool. And there's something called the Child Sexual Abuse Accommodation Syndrome. Recognize it's a prosecution tool. It describes late disclosure of facts, entrapment, why they feel they can't come forward, powerlessness, and other things.
So let me just stop you and say that the behavior that Casey Anthony manifested, the prosecution in a trial like this would usually use that as an explanation for why a Casey Anthony type behavior evolved.
Yes, if this was
this is a typical molestation case.
If this was a molestation case, the prosecution would be grabbing that syndrome and using it. Well, what the defense needs to do
is what?
Is use that syndrome, put it right back at the prosecution, and sit there and explain the inconsistencies, please. Explain why she's not acting like a normal, rational person. Of course, she's a victim of molestation. Over years, from her father and from her brother, those are the allegations, and of course she's not going to behave like a normal person, but you know what? That's not the way the media is taking it, and what the defense needs to do is grab a hold of this, explain it, and turn the tables.
Okay, well, Gene and Jane, I'm going to ask you both. I mean, we all have this feeling that this might be a cold-blooded, premeditated, evil person we've got in our hands here. We've got a defense attorney saying, no, it all fits together. Is there any evidence that she was abused, or how do we make sense of all this? Jane, I think you've made your case that it's just, this is an evil person. Gene, what do you think?
Well, first of all, what I was saying before came from the discovery and came from Casey Anthony's letters. As far as we know, it was never reported. So it's character. I mean, who do you believe? It's a credibility issue. Do you believe Casey, that this is the one time she is telling the truth? Or do you believe George and probably the rest of the family to deny it?
Jane, you said you believe the family. You feel like the family, the mother and the father, are actually being abused in court. So you think this is all the mastermind Casey behind all of this?
Well, I think that Casey does feel like a victim. But is she a victim of molestation, or is she a victim of what she perceives of as her parents' over-interference in her life? When she got pregnant, there's been a lot of reporting that she wanted to give her child up.
Jane, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you. Hang on a second. I'm going to stop you. I'm certainly not one. I'm not coming to Casey's defense. Believe me. Again, whenever I just float theories about Casey, people attack me on Twitter and Facebook. It's crazy. And so I don't know who's lying. I don't know what the answer is here. But jealousy between mom and brother, I deal with teenagers a lot. And I have a lot of jealous, pregnant young girls I deal with. They don't want to kill their baby or their mom. They don't.
Right.
So jealousy is an awfully... Go ahead.
I think the deep resentment comes from the fact that she wanted to give this child up for adoption, and her mother said, no, you're going to have the child. And then basically tries to take the child from her, was the first one to hold the child. So I think that's where the resentment comes from. That's how she feels she's victimized, and she's just saying she's been victimized in another way and perhaps making up that story. But all criminals believe that they're victims on some level.
Jealousy between a mom and a daughter. Mark, I deal with, again, lots of teenagers, and some of them are pregnant, and some of them have been forced to keep them, or convinced to keep their baby by the mom. And there can be lots of conflicted feelings, but that doesn't lead to murder.
I agree. And when I hear your panel, I mean, like I said, I'm not buying what your panel's saying, okay? They may be talk show hosts, they may be, in the media, but I'm telling you right now, as it is,
but Mark,
there are defensible issues on this case.
Maybe defensible, but there are a lot of people that really do believe Casey's an evil person. And my point at the beginning of the show was that it's like Medea. It really, a very threatening notion, a woman that is so aggressive, so violent, and so cold-blooded. It's not the usual situation that we hear about, that I see defended all the time, which is that it's a mother becomes psychotically depressed, in some sort of out-of-her-head state, kills a child, goes into sort of a fugue for a day, and then tries to kill herself a day later. That's the usual, that's like the cases that happens. This seems something very different.
I think it's completely consistent with an individual right now that's been sexually molested repeatedly, and there's accusations that the father and the brother did it, and now the father is a retired police officer that can manipulate the police, that has the ability to sway an investigation based on his credibility. And now you have potentially Casey, who sits there and feels more victimized and sits there and says, what can I do? And keeps changing her story. There's another way of looking at this. And of course, a case like this shocks the conscience of the American people, but we have to look at it from an impartial point of view.
So don't rush to judgment.
And the defense hasn't even put on their case yet.
All right. Well, we'll talk more, and we've got more shocking testimony from Cindy Anthony. Watch this. Casey's mother takes the stand. She accuses Casey of being ungrateful, selfish, and jealous. Inside, details about their twisted relationship from a man who watched the drama unfold from inside the Anthony camp.
I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home.
They're there right now?
I have a possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month.
When you refer to Zanny, is this a person that you ever met?
No, ma'am.
Is this a person that you've ever seen a picture of?
No, ma'am.
Would you be able to describe Zanny from your own independent observation to anyone who asked?
I never had an observation, so I couldn't describe it, no.
That was Cindy Anthony testifying this weekend, talking about the mysterious Zanny the nanny who never existed, I guess. Cindy was getting so frustrated that she hadn't seen Kaylee. She vented on MySpace. Weeks after Kaylee was last seen, Cindy wrote this. Jealousy has taken her away, jealousy from the one person that should be thankful for all of the love and support given to her. Ominous. Back to discuss this, our bounty hunter Leonard Padilla and criminal defense attorney Mark Haushalter. Joining us as well is Susan Constantine, a body language expert. Leonard, You were actually in the home with the Anthonys, as we talked earlier. What did you note to be the dynamic between Cindy and Casey?
Well, there was a situation where Cindy is a very controlling person, and Casey didn't want to be controlled. It had to be about her. As you described earlier, I like that better than the totally insane thing that I have as a layperson. And Casey was like that. One day they were sitting there with my associate Tracy looking at some pictures of Kaylee, and she says, "Oh, how cute," and all that. And Casey immediately takes one of her scrapbooks out and says, "Yeah, but look at me. Look how cute I am." And one of the other things that I wanted to bring up, nobody's touched on the fight that supposedly took place between Casey and Cindy the night of the 15th after the child came out of the pool and was put to bed. There was supposed to have been a horrific fight over money that Casey had stolen from her grandmother's bank account. Nobody's brought that up yet during the court proceedings.
And so it's interesting to speculate what that might have meant to them. Casey's defense then grilled Cindy about her mother's reaction to finding out that Kaylee was missing. Take a look at this one.
So it's Kaylee's missing. Kaylee's missing. Casey says Danny took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month. Okay, I need...
You don't hear George Anthony saying anything other than what on that tape, do you?
I was yelling to George as he was getting out of the car. He parked his car on the street, and I was still in the driveway kind of close to the house.
Other than the word what, do you hear him say anything on that 911 tape?
I don't hear him say anything. I didn't hear him say anything.
All right, Susan, what do you make of Cindy's response here?
Well, Cindy's, response, she always answers the question right on cue. I mean, there's no pausing, there's no hesitation. She's very thoughtful. Her information is very relevant. And then also, too, one of the things is that we don't know how far George was. And George could have been, quite a distance away. She was responding, truthfully to this question. And how do we know how far George was? George could have been 20 feet from there. We don't know. So Cindy Anthony, the entire time I've been watching her, she's emotional, she's panicked about her daughter, the granddaughter missing, and she's acting appropriately. So what we're expecting is that George is going to act the same way. Well, first of all, we weren't there, so we don't know what the expression was on George's face at that time. But without even seeing, Cindy's expression, you can hear the panic in her voice, so I can only imagine that she was panicked and riveted by what, she's learning.
Yeah, maybe she was the last to learn of this. Today on the stand, Cindy Anthony was asked about daughter Casey's feelings of jealousy towards her. Take a look at this.
Did you discuss with her your feelings that she was jealous of you in some fashion?
It was brought up to me by her ex-fiance, Jesse Grand, when they were dating or engaged.
Sustained.
Did you discuss that with Casey?
Yes, I did.
That you had these feelings that you thought she was jealous of you?
Yes.
Okay. Did she deny that?
Yes.
Well, supposedly they were also very close. Leonard, do you think the jealousy issues got in the way of Cindy and Kaylee's relationship?
There was a certain amount of we're going to raise this granddaughter versus her being in the way of Casey. I think what a lot of times people don't understand is the child on that particular occasion, whether it was the 15th or the 16th, was in the way of Casey being out partying. She had used Xanax before to put her to sleep. She had no money, no prescription. She learned how to make chloroform. She just overdid it with the chloroform. And then she's got a dead child, not purposely, criminally, yes, but not intentionally, according to her. That's why she feels she's not guilty of anything. It just happened to be an accident.
So fatal mismanagement, Mark, do you think that's a viable possibility here?
I think it's going to be deflection. I think that's what the defense is going to do. And everyone right now is talking about, how do you think the defense is doing? How do you think defense is doing? Well, it's the prosecution's case in chief. So a defense attorney has to just make tactical decisions right now, utilize
Where are they going to attack? Where are they going to attack?
I think they're waiting for their case in chief, and they're going to bring in the molestation. They're going to flip-flop it, and they're going to show that Casey is a victim. And the reason the family's all staying together is because right now 2 people in the family are being accused of molestation. And, of course, the mother is trying to maintain the family unit. And we heard that from one of your panel members, that she was controlling. This all plays into that, and it's all consistent with the syndrome, child sexual abuse accommodation syndrome, which would explain the weird behavior. I think that's the direction that the defense is going to go in.
Let me ask this. And Leonard, I may put you into this conversation, too, a little bit. If somebody's trying to make the case that this Casey Anthony is a cold-blooded, severe sociopathic, narcissistic killer who doesn't appreciate that other people have feelings, why aren't they, or why isn't the prosecution trying to build the case for that, talking about her hurting animals when she was a kid, talking about her lighting fires, talking about her doing destructive things that people that manifest this kind of cold-blooded killing do? Why aren't they doing that?
I'll tell you, I think the prosecution is probably playing it pretty tight, and what they're trying to do is stick to the facts. They're going to try trying their case and not do a shotgun approach, do a very surgical approach, and keep it tight.
All right, Leonard, what do you think about what I'm saying? I've only got a minute left here, but usually people that are really cold-blooded killers, they've got a pattern throughout their life of there being a part of their soul missing. Why isn't somebody talking about that? We're talking about lying, we're talking about partying, we're talking about really poor mothering and jealousy, but how about something more profound? Why aren't we hearing that story?
No. The prosecution is going after she chloroformed her and meant to kill her. And Casey just overdid the chloroform. She'd never dealt with it before, or if she had, she didn't have that much experience. She was out of Xanax, didn't know what to do, used chloroform. The prosecution's going to go for she did it on purpose to get her out of her life. That's not what Casey's about.
So you think it's an accident, even though Casey is a really not a good person, as you've said repeated times.
Correct.
It was still an accident.
Yes. Okay. That particular incident, it was an accident. She just didn't know how to handle chloroform.
Okay. Wow. It's still pretty devious to think of somebody chloroforming their babies so they can go out and party. That is not a good person, right?
I agree with you on that. I'm not fighting
there, Mark. Start there.
Total agreement.
Stop there, Mark. Leonard, thank you. Susan, thank you as well.
Welcome.
And Mark, thank you for joining us here. Very interesting conversation.
Thank you,
now, look, I study people, and again, this Medea thing gets at all of us, man. We are all reacting to this intensively. And please, I'm just floating ideas here, just trying to get my head around it, just like you guys. And what we witnessed from Casey and your mom today was revealing. And when I come back, I'm going to talk more about what wasn't not just said, but also what we saw in court today. Speaking of grief, welcome back. We're talking about the Casey Anthony trial, where we've certainly seen a lot of intense grief on the stand today. Criminal defense attorney Mark Haushalter is still with me, as well as bounty hunter Leonard Padilla. We're going to talk about Cindy Anthony's emotional response on the stand today. I'm saying it's, the grief is what I saw on her, grief-stricken, while she was listening particularly to the 911 calls that are so central to the case. We've been watching her, but now let's take a look at Casey's response as she listened to herself talking to the 911 operator.
Hey, they want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello? Hello? Yes. Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit? I'm sorry? Can you tell me a little bit what's going on? My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days. And you know who has her? I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Leonard, what do you make of the Casey's appearance there during that 911 call?
Well, that's Casey. I mean, she added the little thing about, I just got a phone call from her. I was on there for about a minute. She said hi to me. The cops checked that out. There was no such phone call. But that's Casey. She lies when she doesn't have to. And she always adds a little something in there just to throw it in there. Zenaida Gonzalez, that's not her name. Fernandez. It's Zenaida Gonzalez, no Fernandez. She just throws things in there. And if you look at the expression on her face when she's sitting there listening to these people testify, especially your mother, it's like, what am I doing here? I got other things that I could be doing. I'm not supposed to be here. What's this all about?
I got to say, when I deal with patients with certain kinds of personality disorder, their version of reality begs no alternative. You know what I mean? They'll hear very specific things about reality and go, well, that's your point of view. You know, they'll just sort of move on. And then that view, the way she looked there reminds me of those kinds of patients. Sometimes they have even histrionic personalities that are like that. And those kinds of patients do a lot of lying. And those patients can be trauma survivors, but not necessarily. Do you make anything of her sitting there stone-faced?
Well, you're talking about a 1,000-yard stare. I know exactly what you're going into. As a defense attorney, you try prepping your client that's sitting next to you not to react in a certain way if they hear something good or hear something bad. And, of course, she was told this. Any competent defense attorney would tell her
like that. So you think that's
sit there and, you know, not grab at a pen or do anything like that. So, and the fact
she is told to sit there stone-faced.
I believe so. I believe she is.
I got a funny feeling from it. I got to tell you. I know that's not something admissible in court, but I get a not good feeling when I see that.
You don't want her jumping around, reacting, and bouncing around also. So, you know, it's the worst of two evils. Rather have her sit here and, you know, kind of seem calm and, you know, desensitized, or do you want a manic client running around on you?
Fair enough. Well, Mark, Mr. Padilla, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm trying to understand this like the rest of us. We're all having this very intense reaction to something that goes at the very core of the human experience. It's going to be with us for a while. We'll have a unique take on the show, on the Casey Anthony trial tomorrow on this show, and I'll see you then.